Okay. Shalom Aleichem to our great esteemed guest here. Welcome back, everyone. What can I say? We started this together about a year ago, and this week is Parshas Azini, and Yerev Kamut Elikchi, it says in the Pusik, Tizal Katal Amrusi. And yeah, that's exactly it. We started something over here, and Baruch Hashem, it was an amazing schooling together, and we're building on that. And it's a huge honor to have you back here. And so much so that we even named the place after one of your chavirim, Bantoyre Lechachma. And it's in the name of everyone. Thank you very much for making this happen with us. And I also want to thank Mr. Uri Eisenberg, who is not here yet, for being part of arranging and helping with your participation and with the other lecturers and professors and visitors that we had over here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for everybody coming. And it makes my return to New York very different, knowing that I'm going to see you all. It feels like home. So thanks, really, it's a zchut for me. I thought we had different options of what is it that we want to learn, and I said to Rabbi Yonasan and Yoelish that I want to study Gemara, and that we've first of all dealing with the issues we want to deal in the sugiyot, but also having an opportunity at least to describe or articulate my approach to how to learn sugiya. And my what I thought of starting, we decided to start Masechet Brachot, to look at Brachot. Now Brachot is a unique Masechet because it's all creation of Chazal. There's no Tfilot Kvuot, there's no Tfilat Keva in biblical period, even in Beit Sheni. The institutions of Tfilah is a whole creation of Chazal, including the Siddur. So it's a way of understanding Chazal freshly, just from seeing what is it that they're creating. And clearly Tfilah is the heart of religious life. And you can understand the religious sensibilities and thought through the construction of Tfilah. Tfilah is a little bit narrower term for the whole liturgical cycle. So include brachot and other things, etc., etc. So this is both very central theme in Chazal's Ashkafa, and it's also an original theme. We are at a moment of origin. Now, one of my understandings of studying a sugya or studying a subject in halacha is always when you go to the moment of origin, you gain a lot from studying it, right? And sometimes the moment of origin is concealed. If you study Gittin, and the first Mishna is השולח גט ממדינת הים, מביא גט ממדינת הים, צריך לומר וכו' וכו', and you don't realize that this already assumes a huge chidush, because it means that get is not a territorial act of a shilcha mibeisa. It could be done long distance. This is actually not a simple point. If you read, or you might read, a certain understanding of the pasuk. So, in light of that, I said, okay, let's do, and I hope we can also study the Siddur, or have some opportunity to see the relationship between the Sugiyot and the emergence of the Siddur. And I want to begin our study with a reflection on Mishnah Brachot as a whole, and then focus on chapter 9, Perek Tet. So I asked to photocopy the Mishnah without the Mefarshim, so we can see the whole text and its structure. So I want to say a few general comments about Mishnah Brachot as a whole. If you look at the Mishnah and we look at the different prakim, it's actually, as a Mishnah, it's a very well-structured Mishnah. Because the first three prakim, let's begin to look a little bit. The first three prakim deal with what? Kriyat Shema, right? That's the first three prakim. Perek Daled and Perek Hey deal with what? Tefillah. I just want to say one thing. Kriyat Shema and Tefillah are not the same things. It's not in the same time. By the way, the same group of people is not obligated, right? Kriyat Shema, Nashim v'Avadim pturim mikriyat Shema. The choreography is different. The halachot of kavanah are different. Kriyat Shema and Tefillah are not the same act at all, right? The Siddur here is actually quite misleading. Combined it. And it's combined because of the halacha of what? Smichat Geula leTefillah, right? Without that halacha, we're talking about two very different institutions. I mean, when we're going to look at this prakim, we're going to understand what does it mean that there are two very different institutions, right? But even from the fact that not the same group of people is obligated in the action, needless to say time, needless to say other issues, etc., etc., Kriyat Shema and Tefillah are not one and the same thing, though the Siddur brings them together. And we're going to have to look at that very carefully, but Im Yirtzeh Hashem when we get there. Now, so the first three prakim is Kriyat Shema, then chapter 4, chapter 5 have to do with Tefillah. Chapter 6 has to do with what? Brachot HaNe'enin, what we call, right? Ketzad Mevarchim Al HaPerot, which is also another institution. Chapter 7 and 8 have to deal with what? Birkat Hamazon and Zimun. It's very well structured relative to Mishnayot. It's actually a very well structured Masechet. Very well structured Masechet. When we're going to look more carefully on in a more nuanced way, we're going to learn more internally about the internal construction of those Mishnayot. Now let's go. We want to do an iyun in chapter 9. Now chapter 9, and let's begin to read chapter 9. And as we go along, I'm gonna make methodological points about. So one thing, I know this is this is a very simple thing to say, but it's whenever you study a Masechet, you really have to control the Mishnah before everything. Mishnah to Sefta, just to understand the Masechet as a chibur in itself. But that's a very simple thing. So I want to begin to read, and as I said, coming back to the moment of origin is so important. I mean, when I wrote this book on Sfekot in the halacha of the Tanaim and Talmud, and I realized because there's so much tradition and discussion about it, at a certain moment you lose the foundational structures, and there is a great clarity that you gain when you say, okay, when this distinction emerged, why did it emerge? When someone said, I don't know, Safek Tumah Bershut Harabim Taor, Bershut Hayachid Tameh. Now that you inside the conversation, right, you don't think about those issues. But when you come back to the origin, of the halacha, there is a freshness to the category that you can learn a lot from it. So I want to learn chapter 9, and among other things, I want to learn my second point after the just coming back to the more into the origin is editorial questions of composition. What can we learn from questions of composition? And there is, by the way, I was troubled by this perek for a compositional question, which I think is really a key to something deep in terms of the hashkafa of the Tanaim. So let's begin to read. הרואה מקום שנעשו בו ניסים לישראל, אומר ברוך שעשה ניסים לאבותינו במקום הזה, מקום שנעקרה ממנו עבודה זרה, אומר ברוך שעקר עבודה זרה מארצנו. אז הראשונים argue whether you say שם ומלכות or not, but simple it's with שם ומלכות. על הזיקים ועל הזוועות, על הברקים, על הרעמים ועל הרוחות, אומר ברוך שכוחו וגבורתו מלא עולם. על הערים ועל הגבעות, על הימים ועל הנהרות ועל המדברות, אומר ברוך עושה מעשה בראשית. רבי יהודה אומר, הרואה את הים הגדול, אומר ברוך שעשה את הים הגדול, בזמן שרואה אותו לפרקים. Right. If he says it every day, that becomes inflationary. Right. So, על הגשמים ועל הבשרות הטובות, אומר ברוך הטוב והאמיתי, ועל השמורות רעות, אומר ברוך דיין האמת. Now, we classify those brachot as not. It's not brachot הנהנים. It's brachot השבח, right? ההודעה, השבח. It's a different category. It's not zimun. It's a different category of brachot. And it's really a response either to history, right? הרואה מקום שנעשו בו ניסים לישראל. It's a kind of framing historical consciousness of relationship with Hashem and to nature. בנה בית חדש וקנה כלים חדשים, נאמר במשנה ג', אומר ברוך שהחיינו. מברך על הרעה מעין הטובה והטובה מעין הרעה. So you have to give bracha for good things. It's not the same bracha, right? For בשורות טובות you say ברוך הטוב והמיטיב, שמועות רעות you say ברוך דיין האמת. So I'm just now reading the perek, so we're going to be on the same page. הצועק לשעבר, הרי זו תפילת שווא. כיצד? הייתה אשתו מעוברת ואמר, יהי רצון שתלד אשתי זכר, הרי זו תפילת שווא. היה בה בדרך ושמע כל צווחה בעיר ואמר, יהי רצון שלא יהיו אלא בני ביתי, הרי זו תפילת שווא. הנכנס לכרך מתפלל 2, 1 בכניסתו ו1 ביציאתו, בן עזאי אומר 4, 2 בכניסתו ו2 ביציאתו, ונותן הודעה לשעבר וצועק לעתיד לבוא. So this is a category that I'm going to look into it very carefully, תפילת שווא.
And how does it come into this perek?
Oh, here we have a problem. You already make a serious point here. What is that has to do with the whole brachot? Actually, as an editor, if Rabbi Yehuda Nasi would have sent me Maseret Brachot, I have a very good place actually where to locate it, in Perek Dalet. I have a very good place. But I was very troubled by the entry of this Noseh of Tefillah, especially where Tefillah and Bracha are very separate in this Masechet. So we have you have introduced our editorial problem here. חייב אדם לברך על הרעה כשם שהוא מברך על הטובה, שנאמר, ואהבת את השם אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, בכל לבבך בשני יצריך, right? It's not לבך, לבבך, right? ביצר טוב ויצר הרע, בכל נפשך אפילו נוטל את נפשך, ובכל מאודיך, בכל ממונך, דבר אחר, בכל מאודיך, בכל מידה ומידה שהוא מודד לך, ומודה לו במאוד מאוד. That's a nice דרשה of מאודיך. Right? בכל מידה, מודה במאוד מאוד. Now, by the way, just to emphasize the editorial problem here, if we would have deleted the issue of Tfilat Shav from the middle of Mishnah Gimel till the end of Mishnah Dalet, we had a natural flow, because the Mishnah established the argument of Mevarech al Tova v'Mevarech al Hara, and then, because it's such an important issue, it brings a makor from ואהבת את השם אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, הווה מודה לו במאוד לעוד, בכל מידה ומידה שהוא מודד לך, מידת הטוב, מידת הרע. We really have a problem here. Okay?
We're getting into a bigger problem now.
Okay. Now we have לא יקל אדם ראשו כנגד שער המזרח. I want to leave it separately, because that's I have things to say about this, but let's stop here. We should deal with the end of the Masechet soon, if we have time. But meanwhile, we have a structural problem. By the way, the structural problem is magnified because the Baal HaMishnah is very careful in organizing different institutions in different prakim, and it's not clear why is Tfilat Shav. What's the place of Tfilat Shav in this perek? Okay, now I want to suggest a solution to it, which I think I think it's a key to a very deep question about Tfilah and Bracha. And the solution is like this. There is a rule that a person has to thank, mevarech, modeh, right? Here mevarech is modeh. על הטובה מעין הרעה ועל הרעה מעין הטובה. It's a very important principle. But now we have to read it like that. We have to add a vav here. Just imagined vav, but vavim can be added or not, it's fine. והצועק לשעבר, but the one who צועק about the past, the one who complains about the past, הרי זו תפילת שווא, he should have done what? Rather than לצעוק לשעבר, he should have thanked. Right? Now that we said that a person has to be thinking about the ra'ah, we have to organize the relationship between begging and thanking. Right? By the way, the verb used here for tefillah is a very strong one, tzoek. There are different verbs that are used for tefillah in the Mishnah and in Sifrut Chazal. Here's a very strong term, atzoek. So we have to read it like that. מברך על הטובה, על הרעה מעין הטובה ועל הטובה מעין הרע. והצועק לשעבר, או הצועק לשעבר, who's not thanking, but he keeps on demanding change. הרי זו תפילת שווא. Now there are two examples. We're going to get into those examples soon. And then the Mishnah at the end of Mishnah Dalet sets the proper relationship between Bakasha and Oda'ah, which is נותן הודעה לשעבר וצועק לעתיד לבוא. Basically, what is troubling our editor? It's actually a very deep question. What's the relationship between Bakasha and Oda'ah? Because there is a tension here. Because Oda'ah is a mode of acceptance. You just accept. And if you accept, why do you ask?
The future.
Yeah.
Accept the future too.
Okay. Now, if you have to, especially now, if you would have said, we accept the good, we modern the good, but we complain about the bad, then you have a very nice division of labor between Oda'ah and Bakasha, right? But at the moment you say, Modeh al Hara'ah, you put into question the very idea of what? Bakasha, right? It's a serious issue. So, now you have this idea how to organize the relationship between Oda'ah and Bakasha. It's a very deep point, because here you work out a complex relationship. Because you could have said, we only modeh. That's it. By the way, there are stark traditions of
Between acceptance and hope.
right, exactly. So you say, we could have say, and by the way, there are such views of tefillah in general, that we just modim, whatever Hashem gives us. You know, there are traditions of prayer where there is no bakasha. In Islam, the relationship to bakasha is complicated, and actually there are few views in Machshavet Israel that have complex relationship to bakasha. It's an inferior mode, but that's not the view of the Chazal. Tefillah.
Which kind of views in Judaism?
There are. We can go into it. We can go into it. There are moments in which bakasha is b'diavad, you know. The real mamin is just accepts everything. But no, what's the idea here? It's the following. Bakasha is essential. To complain, to ask for change is essential in a relationship to Hashem. It must be the essence of tefillah. Tefillah rachmeninu, right? But you have to put a limit to it, and the limit is on the time axis. Future and past. You accept the past, and you beg or tzoek about the future. It's actually a complex dialectics, and it breaks with two very simplified solutions. One is to have only Oda'ah, and the other is to have Oda'ah for good and to beg for bad. No, we have a very complex structure of relationship of tefillah.
What would be the havam in it to be tzoek al ha'avar? You can't change the past.
Right.
So what is the meaning of that?
Tzoek al ha'avar means you're not modeh in some deep ways.
That's what it means.
In some
You're
deep
not happy
ways.
with what happened.
You're not accepting, right? You don't accept.
You're complaining.
Complaining, right?
this case.
So we know, by the way, how complicated it is. By the way, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. You know, I'm sure many of us have been in that moment where you ask so deeply that there will be a refuah there, and then a moment comes when you say Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. It's a complete transformation of your relationship, of acceptance. So we have to. We see, I mean, just to look, I'm just saying how much we gain from looking at the question of structure and realizing a problem in structure and understanding that this problem, or noticing it, can yield a very profound understanding of what's going on in terms of Machshavet Chazal here. Yes?
And the second part of it's if I would just be, let's say we're Litvakis or something, that we learned the Mishna and everything is Man Krish, Man Tefillah, and the Bruchos is set up. It seems to me that it's all set up. When do you have to do things? And
Right.
so you start at night and by day, and then there are things that happen if you're in the middle of something,
Right.
and then a historical event. Maybe a historical event you have to do something also. When do you do that?
Right.
Before, after? It seems like the whole project is about times. Like maybe it should be called Mesechus Manim. Like when should you do it?
Right.
No, I'm thinking that even the second project right away has that problem. Why?
We're gonna get there. So we have to clearly, the first element of any ritual is time. we're going to get to time and what is the construction of time and why this time and not this time. We're going to learn all those issues, all these issues. When someone creates them, when they're giving, so you can be formalistic about it. But at the moment where someone basically constructed it, you have to ask what drove the construction in this way rather than that way, etc. You cannot be a pure Litvak at the moment of origin, right?
But it's not like the moment of origin, when the feed our beliefs, it's not like they made it up that time.
No.
I think the old Masorot, I don't think they made it up.
We're trying to understand what was in their minds.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I'm not committed.
I don't think this was making up then. It was already
Okay.
a Masorah for sure.
Okay, we're gonna look at the. I take this. We're gonna have to ask still. By the way, there are debates,
Right.
etc.
Even
But
if
that's
now-
a
Saying
big
it's not like
portion.
the moment of origin, like from scratch. That's what I'm trying to say.
In Tfilah, the times are all from scratch, right?
Yeah, but the
I'm not sure that
organization. of the-
Mishnayot is from scratch. The time not that looks like even a Bayit Shani or there was already
Zmanim?
Tfilah.
No.
Okay,
Zmanim?
let's say you're gonna say like a
Absolutely
Dayot that is
not.
after Bayit Shani, but
Absolutely.
still not like till the Rebbeinu Hakadosh.
Phyllis,
The
but
Vida
But
Yid
But
Anasi.
Rabbeinu Kadosh
my
is
voice.
reflecting traditions, right?
Right.
But if someone says we are organizing a Tfilat Chova, Tfilat Keva, right? Which wasn't, it's the Rabbanan Lekule Alma. You can say that the principle of Tfilah is the Oraita, but Tfilat Keva in its structure,
The Nusach.
the Nusach, etc.,
Zmanim.
Zmanim.
Chazal tell us.
And then you ask yourself, okay, what drives this, right? You can say what's driving is the parallel to Zmanei Atamid.
Yeah.
Well, if this is the parallel, you have a problem with Ma'ariv, etc. We're going to have to get into all those questions, but all this is to say, not by way of
No, I'm saying
deflecting the
Kriyat Shema
problem.
was for sure in Mikdash already. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I'm not sure. This is what the Mishnah says.
Even if
No,
not, even if
no,
not,
I'm
the-
not. We're
Say
gonna
them, say
get
them.
that. Yeah,
So
sure.
definitely 20 years, 50 years.
There is a
from
Mishnah in
before
Tamid
the
where they
Mishnah
used to say Kriyat Shema. Yeah.
Rebbe is
Sure.
like fif-
Did they say Kriyat Shema Varvit?
It's outside Mishnah.
No.
Did they say? Did they say? Did they say Kriyat Shema Varvit in the
It's not from
Mishnah?
scratch.
Okay,
I agree
בסדר.
with Tfilah. I do agree, but-
Okay, בסדר.
Chazal tell us Tfilah
Tanum
b'mukim
is Zman HaChorban.
Chazal say Tfilah b'mukim korban.
נכון.
So meaning, when there was no karbunas, after the korban, then was the taken of Tfilah.
Okay.
השבח צווי שהיה בזמן הבית.
אני אומר מה
We're
שחז"ל אומרים.
we're gonna have time. This, so I'm putting in terms of the
Right.
protocol of our discussion. I'm erasing that comment from the protocol for further exploration. Right? We're gonna have time in Yirtzeh Hashem to time. Apropos zmanim, we're gonna have time to look at this question.
Professor, if I can
Yeah.
comment on the two examples from the Mishnah. You said it's about acceptance. Well, the Mishnah does give us two examples where the outcome is not known yet.
Right.
So there is some point about, you can say acceptance is where the thing already happened, and you know what happened, and despite feeling bad about it, you feel bad about it and you don't accept it. But here, he doesn't know what the outcome is.
Okay.
It seems like the point is that don't think that you can still change things.
Right. Okay. So here you inviting us to look very carefully at the examples and what is exactly Tfilat Shav. I'm gonna go into it. Just to say, well, the term Tfilat Shav is I want to say something about the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah. One of the great things about Mishnah, like all good chiburim, is a big step in language, right? All big texts are big steps in language, right? The term Tfilat Shav is a Mishnaic invention, right? It's not like you can find it. So, by the way, the Tosefta calls it Tfilat Tifla. There's a word play on Tfilah. It doesn't use the term Tfilat Shav. It uses Tfilat Tifla. You just change the sequence of letters, etc. But the
Because
term
Tifla means Toma, Avodah Zarah, because maybe they're referring to
Tifla,
that kind of-
vain, empty. So,
Kill him around the tiflis.
Can you
yeah,
remember
okay, but
much
we,
this in the
What is
Heine
first
negative
tefillah?
things?
What was
The
tefillah?
Heine,
But not,
I think that's
It's
a
a-
Shav, as if you can
it's
change
a,
something.
it's a powerful
Yeah.
term, by the way.
Tefillah
and-
means to waste. Tifla
yeah.
could mean
Whether Tfilat Shav is stronger than just misfiring or doing something worse.
Negative.
It is evokes Shvuat Shav. The term Shav carries a tonality of negativity than just mere misfiring.
But
We
also
didn't do
futility.
anything.
It's
Hmm?
negative, but it's also futile.
Futile. It's futile, but the
Could
but
be
the
an
futility carries with it
some theological.
some negativity to it.
But Shvuas Shav is negative because there's no point in making a Shvuah for no meat.
Right.
But the Shav
Why is
part,
the negative here? What's the negative tonality here? Because it reflects unwillingness to thank for the bad.
Not
Which is
because it's-
because religiously, it's an improper relationship to Hashem. It reflects a position which you say, I'll only thank for the good things. And it's a pgam in ahava. Well, what is love? You would say love is an unconditional relations. You know, it's not dependent upon, it's not transactional. So it reflects a lack of ahava in the terms of the mission. So it's shav, it has a negativity to it, and it comes from the fact that והצועק לשעבר, who's not מברך על הרעה, הרי זו תפילת שווא. There is an oppositional vav here, vav הניגוד, if we had an
Or like
imagined-
aval hatzoek.
Exactly, exactly. So now, okay, now we have, I'm just methodologically, just in terms of learning, you come back to, because Mishna is a well-crafted text, and our editor gives a lot of thinking to the organizational structure of the Mishnah, here is a moment where you can gain an insight concerning a problem, a solution, a problem, a deep religious point, which is that now that we have the category of Oda'ah, and we have the category of Oda'ah Lara, we have to set the relationship between Bakasha and Oda'ah, because they are in tension. And the way the relationship is being set on the level of principle, we're going to have to look at it carefully how it works, is that on the axis of past and future. Okay. Now, I want to say, now let's get to a closer look at the content. So, we have two examples, right? הייתה אשתו מעוברת ואמר יהי רצון שתלד אשתי זכר, הרי זו תפילת שווא. I'm a father of 3 daughters. There is a different reason why it's תפילת שווא. But, okay. But it's תפילת שווא because the gender
Has already been
the gender is
determined.
already determined. You don't know about it, but it's determined. And someone who hears a cry in the city and he begs or he tzorek that it's not going to be from his own family or home, also it's tfilat shav because the cry already happened. It's really about reverse causality. משל למה הדבר דומה? They're a sports fan who didn't see a game and they want to see the replay and they don't want to know the results because they want to keep the tension, and they find themselves davening that their team will win, though the game already is done. I mean, there are those who daven those tefillot, which is that's a different reason why there will be a tefillat shav in time already. But you see, but that's the kind of act, right? If you're a real Oved Hashem, you should have said, whatever the result will be, I don't know it, אני מודה לקדוש ברוך הוא. אוהב.
But these two examples, it's like what Reb Chaim said, it goes against your idea. Had it been your approach, it should just be a tzoy kol ha'sha'uva. Somebody had a bad luck, a bad situation, and he's complaining about it. Why do we have to get these two
It's
examples?
even more
seem to
so. No, I would say it's even more so.
You mean like
It's-
here he doesn't know the outcome
It's
yet? That's what you mean?
even if you don't know the
Running
outcome.
away from acceptance.
Not only acceptance has to do is to
level,
do.
We're not talking about Meshiguan, we're talking about normal
Deeper
people.
level.
They just don't know.
is- acceptance has to do even without knowledge of what happened. It already happened, and your attitude should be what? Whatever happened. Whatever happened.
I would read something else.
אני
in
מודה.
it.
Go ahead.
They don't let. Do you let?
No, we don't know.
Okay, got it.
We heard the
I see
comment.
something
It's a
else.
strong
I
comment.
don't let.
No, it's fine. I want to say, I want to say the following. Your comment led us to a further emphasis here, which is very good. Which is, it's the term לשעבר encompasses more than just acceptance of known events. It's a generalized acceptance of whatever happened, אני מודה, because it already happened, though I don't know what actually happened. But still there is a certain asymmetry between הייתה אשתו מעוברת and שמע צווחה that we have to look carefully at. And here I want to bring forward another, what's for me a very important analytical tool in studying a sugya. It's the key of all sugiyot. I would say, if someone will tell me, just give me one key to how to study a sugya, if I had only time for one, that's the one I would begin with. And I want to read the Yerushalmi and the Bavli here on Atzek L'Shava, because they take two very different approaches. Now we have the Yerushalmi here. You all have it in yes, this is the Yerushalmi that you have here is on your text, on that we say Model Shavar, because it's not complete, but we have a better version. Is this? Yes, exactly. The Beit Yanai Amar. This is the Yerushalmi in Perek Tet Mishna Gimel in the Yerushalmi. The Beit Yanai Amar ביושבת על המשבר. הקודם Cohen יצלי. So how they interpret הייתה אשתו מעוברת. היא כן יושבת על המשבר. As she's off the board. Yeah. By the way, I just want to say one important principle. Again, I'm coming to the key for me how to read a sugya. I call it the principle of interpretive gaps. Right? If you see, and every sugya becomes interesting at that moment, where the authoritative text, in that case the Mishna says, הייתה אשתו מעוברת, and some later version, by the way, here is very early later version. The Beit Rabbi Yanai is very early, right? It's the first generation of Amoraim Tanaim, right? Reinterprets the Mishnah, right? Not in a straightforward fashion, right? As if they want to push the moment of prayer even further. They want to allow you they want to allow you more place for complaining from tzaka. Now I just want to say if you read a sugya, right, there's not going to be one sugya in Shas that is not going to have an interpretive gap. By interpretive gap I mean where a later, either Amora vis-a-vis the Mishnah, or a later Amora vis-a-vis a prior Amora, will opt for something which is semantically slightly implausible, right? And it's not that he doesn't know what's the plausible reading, right? And there you have to ask the following question as a reader: what drove the Amora or the Stama, right? Because what is a Talmud? The Talmud is a chain of interpretive moves, right? But usually in normal, I would call what I would borrow from Thomas Kuhn. So we have what he calls normal science, right? Normal science is you have a paradigm and you work within the paradigm, and then there are questions that follow from the normal routine. But then there is a moment of shift, right? And moments of shift are when there is an interpretive moment, a crossroad of an interpretive moment,
Like a paradigm.
where the least semantically plausible option becomes dominant.
Like a paradigm shift.
A paradigm shift, exactly. And then you have to enter that moment and ask, okay, what happened here? Right? What happened here? That's the key, because in what makes a sugya interesting, you might say,
It's those changes.
it's those moments, right? So you would say, I don't know, you will read, I don't know, המניח תקד ברשות הרבים, etc., etc. And then an Amora would say, בממלא כל רשות הרבים בקדים. Or he would say, בקרן זווית. He will opt for a reading that a reasonable reader is not going, and it's not because he is not aware of the pshat. It's not like pshat was invented in the 19th century. Right? They're very careful readers. They know what they're doing, right? So here is a moment, right? By the way, if you become open to that, you'll see it basically in every sugya in different moments, or you will see it consequently with the Rishonim relating to the sugya.
We even see it with the psukim.
Right? Yeah, you see it in the Midrash and the Psukim, etc., etc. You will see such a moment, and that's the moment where you have to you have to stop and say something is going on here. And for me, that's the key to understanding the sugya, right? So, because something troubled the reader with what looks to be the reasonable reading of the prior authoritative statement. Right? That's what makes a sugya a dynamic moment, and that's where reflection has to be emphasized. And here we have it, right? It says, "Biyoshevet al ha'mashber im matnitin." No, it says, "Ita ishto me'uberet."
And there's a machiyuviyut to the emet of the pshat of the Mishnah, or lav dafke?
No.
And you're not going in this discussion.
And now I have a question: how they allow themselves, etc., etc., etc. What's the? Now here is I have the law of physics, the first theorem of physics of interpretation, which is the more the text is authoritative, the less its meaning is fixed. Okay, but that's there is a reverse relationship between authority and stability of meaning. But that's just a generalized term that I'm going to have to
It's
flesh out.
psychological because people don't want to, not because that's the truth.
Right.
It's because they don't have the azut to say
Right. First of all, you don't want to declare the text wrong.
right, but you have
So
to
you have
find
to
a way.
interpret it. After all, you
No, if they
or
have
you might
machiyuviyut, maybe
want to
they
say,
machiyuv to the text.
or you want to say something even maybe a different way. Since I am mechuyav to the text, I want to put the
Das-
text in the best
das ist
possible
der
light.
Rebbe gesagt, hat er gemeint.
Because you said that a lot of times you start with Rabbi Yanai, and then you could go, let's say with Rabbi Ashi has a pshat, there's a big gap in a lot of years, you have few dorot. That means that the Pashtus Rabbi Yanai's pshat is the pshat, and Rabbi Shai's
No, because
that could be so many years, so many dorot.
No, sometimes it happens in the first door, even if the ink wasn't dried enough, or in this case there wasn't an ink, or it happens afterwards.
Or societal
I can
changes.
show you sugya that Rabbi Yana says the pshat, and Mazitra the sixth door says the
Sure,
pshat.
sure.
It's interesting.
It's not that the earlier.
That earlier is the more real version.
No,
Why?
not at all. I can show you in the first
Why should it
verse.
be?
The
It's
first.
both understandings. What difference does it make?
The later generation.
Basruah.
I just want to say one thing. Sometimes you see in the first generation of Amoraim,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I just learned not long time ago, right? רוצח שנתערב. There is a Mishna in Sanhedrin. רוצח שנתערב. בין הרוצחים, and there is a
Shem
debate
and Bida.
between
Which means
Chachamim
the
and
Shem and
Rabbi
Bida.
Yehuda. Right, Chachamim said, you don't kill any of them. And,
Which means,
Rabbi
because you don't
Yehuda
know which
said,
means to
מכניסים את כולם לכיפה. And then Shmuel, right? Shmuel is the first generation of Amoraim,
Yes.
right? He says, בשברים היא מתניתין. הכוונה, you don't talk about humans who were killers, but you're talking about oxes.
Because society couldn't accept it anymore.
Because the idea that in Safek, okay, I don't want to get into, we can go into this. Those moments of what I would call strong interpretive gaps happen in all generations in different moments, right? I want to say, but what I want to say is the following. You have to ask yourself, why is the reason for the new trajectory? You can say, well, societal changes, value, religious sensibilities, something is troubling here. Well, in the case of the Rabbi Yanai, that locates the mirror, יושבת על המשבר, till the moment of birth.
Because they had a tradition
You
of,
can-
of Dina. They had
Okay,
that
we're
tradition, that influence.
gonna look now.
They
Okay,
usually tell you why.
sometimes they don't. Some, and here
Here
they
they're
say,
telling us. Here they're telling
And it
us.
can be a lot of times just like analyzing the text himself without being to the change of times and anything. It always has to be, it has.
not always. I want to say the following. A reasonable reader of Mu'beret is not going to come
Yeah,
to the
that's true,
outcome
that's
of
true,
ביושבת על המשבר,
That's true.
right? So you have to ask
Fourth
yourself,
trimester.
what? You can say, you can begin, הייתה אשתו מעוברת, when you see pregnancy, when pregnant. You can begin,
That's the term.
Yeah, you can begin
Bubbling,
speculate
bubbling,
what does it
We're
mean
going to say that
מעוברת.
Yerush Salamezra means the first week of the fourth trimester, because we need to reverse Rebais Yana back to Reshna.
Because Yidais Chodesh, so it's
Why
like
can't
Gehalten
it be
scans on
just an
Yidais Chodesh.
intellectual-
You can't say
If
something
somebody looks
that's
at the Mishnah,
fakir.
says,
יושבת על המזבח,
okay,
יושבת
Mason,
על
the
המזבח.
Vedas means
From when
pregnant.
she goes
But
into
then
being able to
they
deliver a
wanna know
live
what
baby,
those
it's
two
called
pound
Geshes.
means.
It's
When somebody-
constructive.
if
Scientifically,
somebody
there's
learns
gain.
the
I
Mishnah,
what he did
says,
to the Mishnah. It's
when
okay.
somebody's
What's
praying,
did you gain? What did you gain? Scientifically,
Bring
did you
it
gain
back
anything?
to
Is it
Reshna.
a
From the
what
other
actually
a little better.
is the
Scientifically
result
makes
of
a
the
difference.
Scientifically,
but
there's no
being
difference.
Rebais
when
Yana
it's coming
couldn't
with
make
something like that, what people
Ah,
ask here,
okay.
people say, well, isn't it like a stupid
He didn't
prayer?
gain anything.
Why does the Mishnah have to tell us about it?
Right.
Somebody asks this question. So it's a real question. Why does the Mishnah have to tell us, don't make a stupid, don't say something stupid? If, let's say, we believe, if whoever is reading the Mishnah doesn't think that it could actually change a baby while they're pregnant, so they see a Mishnah and they say to themselves, why the Mishnah is saying this for a reason.
Right.
The regular text meaning of Medvedes just doesn't make sense. Because why the Mishnah is going to tell us?
What is the Beit Yanai answer?
But then does Beit Yanai, it seems like he makes the question worse.
No, but it's not. Let's say, you know something actually crazy as it is, you could change it. Because it doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't make sense.
Okay,
Maybe-
let's follow. This is suggestive. Let's follow that. What I want to say is, methodologically, I want to raise three. One is what we call coming to moments of origins, when the phenomenon is still fresh, when it's not yet covered with so many discussions and chilukim, etc., etc. And you say, okay, let's look about structural, editorial issues, the way we saw in. But here we are coming to what I say, what I believe is the main. Now, if we're going to study a sugya, I don't know, you take any sugya in Shas, seriously. I would dare say, any sugya in Shas will have a moment of a genuine leap in an interpretive choice that creates an interpretive gap, which is either explicitly stated why, or it doesn't state why, and you have to do the work of speculating why, right? But that's the most interesting moment, right? I would say, if I want to analyze what is halachic discourse is an interpretive chain. When one generation interprets the previous statements of another generation, that becomes potent and transformative when you encounter a moment of interpretive gap. Okay. So then it says, על שם הנה כחומר ביד היוצר. רק קודם כל נהיה אצלי, על שם הנה כחומר ביד היוצר. After all, by the way, here is an interesting question, because it's a good question, because if the time axis was the issue, is not asking that while she was pregnant, this fetus would have been male. It's not interested in לשעבר. He's actually future-oriented. He asks, from now on, let it be male. After all, what is tefillah? Tefillah is that future is completely open-ended. הנה כחומר ביד היוצר. Now they bring a raya for that this is a possible way of scenario. Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi בשם דבית ינאי, עיקר עיבורה של דינה זכר היה. That's right. She was a male. מאחר שנתפללה רחל נעשת נקבה, because it says ואחר ילדה בת. What is ואחר? עדיי ואחר ילדה בת ותקרא שמה דינה, מאחר שנתפללה רחל נעשת נקבה. ואמר רבי יהודה בשם דבי רבי ינאי, אימנו רחל מנביאות הראשונות הייתה. אמרה עוד אחד יהיה ממני. עדה ודכתיב יוסיף השם לי בן אחר. בנים אחרים לא אמרה, אלא עוד אחר יהיה ממני. She knew that there is a zero-sum game here of 12. If Dinah would have been a boy, she wouldn't have two banim. So Dinah had to be a bat in order that she would have not only Yosef, but Binyamin. And here's a case where a prayer affected the transformation of the gender of the fetus. By the way, not because it was past-oriented, but because it's future-oriented.
Because they believe the gender is determined later on in the pregnancy.
No, we didn't say that.
I do believe that.
We call already Nekeva.
They know already.
They know. They call already Zachar. It's called Zachar.
No, they know. היא לא ראתה. היא אמרה,
לא, יש יותר משבר, אולי היא ראתה, עם כל זה, זה יכול להיות. אז למה מי אומר שזה...
By the way, their gynecology, in Chazal's gynecology, the gender of the fetus is defined early.
40?
After 40 days, etc. And there is a diyun, there are diyunim in different, etc. So, here we have a problem, by the way.
Is this a diyun in Psukim? How you learn Psukim?
No.
They don't care about the science at all? Or Rabbi Yanai hold the
No.
science also like that?
The science is science here. They don't say that the gender is open till the moment of birth. They don't say that.
They do say that
The gender is set already.
if it's set
From
in
conception.
No, it's not so.
No, because we see that.
By the way,
nonetheless, things could
I had
change.
a problem.
What?
Why can't you ask of a girl of 2 years to change? הנה כחומר ביד היוצר.
That's the first transgender.
That's the logic of it, right?
The logic
We
goes
find
further.
it
The
actually
person
in the
already died.
Oi ba größte Tzadik.
From now on, it should
Oi
be
ba
allowed.
größte
Yeah, but
Tzadik.
Oiba Zuk is
Exactly.
set. If he says it's set,
Exactly.
very hard.
No, but we do
By
see.
the way,
I think
by
the
the
point
way,
is.
by the way,
can be set.
Baruch Dayan,
If it's set, then like you asked me, why can't you ask me 2 years?
No,
Obviously, it's not
because
exactly
we see
set.
a big tzaddik
There's
can
something
change it.
still that you can
Yafeh. So why it's, in what it's dependent, it's very interesting. Now,
something is a
We see a
Leida.
tzaddik, and the Neviah could change it.
Right.
So I'm also,
Not changing
I'm
going
so
on by
honest.
head, not changing going on. There is something to do with the Leida. There's still change.
so I want to say,
the reverse of it.
okay, I want to say what's going on, at least my own understanding of Yerushalmi. It says it wants to push the line between begging and accepting
Right.
further towards begging, towards tzoek,
You have more time.
Right.
That's tefillah.
more
Yeah.
time for shayin,
Tzaka,
right.
Shaila.
Rachma.
Rachmei. So, and then you say, because after all, Hashem can change, even if the gender is changed.
Why not
But-
after? Why not after?
So
Now
in a stage
I'm
four.
going to answer that. As long as you don't know what is the gender, though the gender is already set. Okay? So there is a kind of a constraint, that the constraint of not knowing, that allows, it gives you some flexibility of continuation of bakasha for further bakasha.
But it's against the science.
It's not against the science, no.
Why not?
It's
Why
part of
not?
הנס. אתה מתפלל
Yes,
לנס.
but I see a
Why is it not
difference.
against
Can-
science?
I think the only reason
I'd
is you
like
can't
to
disprove
suggest,
it.
I'd like
Can't
to suggest the
disprove it,
difference.
But we all agree that they
Only thing
know
is if
that
it's not known,
that the
then it's
fetus,
not.
the
If it's
gender
No,
of
it
the
can be
fetus
if
is
they
set.
know the gender is set.
I'll give you an example.
Why? The only reason I
in
understand
Eka
after לידה, that
הנה כחומר ביד היוצר. The לידה is not that then the gender is set.
כחומר ביד יוצא עד הלידה. אחרי הלידה זה כבר לא...
But then you know.
כי כולם רואים, אין
אבל
דבר
דיברו
כזה, לא
לריסט,
קרה שום
we're talking
מקום
about the
שזכר
zrika
השתנה לנקבה אחרי הלידה.
אוקיי.
לפני הלידה אתה יכול להגיד מה שאתה רוצה.
Okay,
I'd
let's
like to
continue.
suggest, can I suggest an approach, possibly? If everybody who has stage 4 cancer dies, then when anybody who thinks they have stage 4 cancer,
There it becomes a life.
end of
We
the-
can't say
end
that
of
are
the road.
miracles. The question is,
This is no miracle, they
but
can't ask for
since some
miracles.
people
No, they
survive
ask
it,
for miracles.
יש מקום
What?
להתפלל.
You can't
Okay.
ask
Here
for
we
miracles.
see
Okay.
That's for sure. The
Rachel Imenu managed to
Navi
do
has different
something.
type
How,
of
I
channel,
don't know.
how he,
So therefore,
it's like more to prove
I can go and
his
petition my
gadlut.
Rebbe, I can go to the Pshayla Kerestira and petition because it's happened once. I think that's what it
It's
is.
So we have a
Not
precedent.
exactly same.
We have a
Okay,
precedent.
we'll go to,
science answer to your
first of
question.
all,
It doesn't work.
Doesn't
You have to
matter.
mark.
It's not-
You understand?
okay,
It's
let's
a mess. At the end of the day, it's
That's
a
what I'm trying to
mess.
prove.
If you
Tell him,
change
it's
it.
not the same thing. Like after the later.
let's, I
There is
mean, I want to
something
say,
changeable.
I want to say one thing.
Moshe says not like that, no?
No, it's clear that they knew very well that the fetus, that the all gynecology of second, first, third century knew that the gender of the fetus is decided sometime in the
conception.
middle of the, not upon conception,
But shortly thereafter.
but after, but somewhere in the beginning of pregnancy.
Okay.
That they knew that. Now what they catch here is that asymmetry between the two examples in the Mishna. Because the second example of Shama Kol Tzvacha is clearly reverse causality, where you want to change the past. With the gender of the fetus, you are not asking about the past. You're not asking, I beg you that in the first trimester or the second trimester she would have been male. No, I don't care. Let her be female. I want from now on, etc. Now you would say, so why not?
Why not after later?
Why after Leida? Because the difference between accepting
It
and
never
question
happens.
had to do with your knowledge of the fact. Okay, now, but it's open to
Mashal
interpretation.
Lorraine.
That's fine. That's fine. That's
See the
fine.
Gemara about
So that
counting.
I
helps
just
us.
want to say,
It's all psychological.
I just want to say, it couldn't be only the only criteria, because Shama Kol Tzvacha Ba'ir, you don't know, and you still, that will be Tfilat Shav Lekule Alma. Why? Because what you want is reverse causality. You
It's
want
known
it,
to some people already.
or
It's
even
not
if it's
anymore
not
the
known.
Maimonides.
Why isn't this
It's
reverse
happened already.
causality?
No,
Like
because
the
you're
tree
asking
that
for the
falls and
future.
nobody hears it.
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
falls.
yeah.
That's
Even
the
with
question. Is that the
Maimonides,
question?
Why can't you
The
ask
tree
for the
that
future?
falls and it falls and nobody hears. Did the tree
Shama
really
Kol
fall? Is
Tzvacha, I
that the
don't care if you
question?
call Tzvacha, if you can
No,
change
no,
it.
no.
I don't have a problem with the Kol Tzvacha. And I'm ready that you shouldn't change it.
You
Came
can-
from Beiti, but they should change the outcome, like the Leida.
No, you can say, by the way, that's a good
psychology.
that's
You
a good
didn't see it, it
tefillah.
happened.
That's a good
זה למעלה
תפילה.
מהזמן,
It's good תפילה. שמע כל צבחה בעיר.
Black hole.
You can say, I pray that if it happened in my household,
It should change.
they will have refuah. Those who were burnt will have refuah, etc. I can pray future-oriented.
But I'm not
Question
talking about
about
saying
things
not
I'm
true.
not
I'm saying it should. Yeah, okay.
Okay, בסדר. Let's look to Bavli, and here's Bavli very interesting.
I'm just asking one question. This whole shita from Yana is based because you really believe the pshat in this psukim. This what made him. Let's say it's a medrash. Yeah, you could say
course
you
it's
can
a
make the
medrash.
medrash differently. So I'm trying to say this is the source, or the source is because you said we wanted to give more time. And
It says
what is the reason? What brings him to?
So I'll tell you what here.
What was the
Here
drive?
we are entering the interpretive, the reasoning that created the interpretive gap. Right? Why is it that
Or they coming with svara or with pasuk?
it begins with "Hine כך omer biyad hayotzer"? It begins with the very idea of prayer. It says, what is prayer? Prayer is that the future is open-ended, that it's not set. אפילו חרב חדה מונחת על צור וכו' וכו'.
But it's still a chance.
Still
You can't.
And we see here
Okay.
a story that
And,
Why would you
and,
change
and
the thing by your
then,
head?
because
It's
it's
a
not
miracle.
reverse causality, because you
Positive mind.
asking for the fetus to become male, not to be male all the time. And הנה כך אומר ביד היוצר. We want to give more place to that theme of prayer as the capacity to cause change. Now, what's the limit? The limit is
It doesn't mean that means God could do it. It doesn't mean that this is that this is really happening always. That you could say everything that God could change. It's not-
If it happened
But-
once,
Why
it's
Why
enough.
is it considered choimer when it's a nibble?
Yeah, but let me ask you a question.
It's a baby in the womb.
Vis-a-vis the father,
You can
in the
shake.
case, vis-a-vis the father, in the case of Shirot Shia Bli Zachar, you would never know whether it was a nest or he was conceived this way. So maybe it's not a miracle. Your understanding
Okay.
is that you can't
Okay, I hear
pray
you
for a
saying-
miracle.
okay. Let's look at the Bavli, and things will get
So-
clear by looking at the
Can I
Bavli.
just add? I think Chazal say in a bracha shoreh ela b'davar asomim and really
This is what
applies
he's
here.
trying to say.
Right, right.
Ein bracha shora ele b'davar asumim v'na'ai. יכול להיות.
Okay,
As
let's.
long as there's no knowledge, things can happen.
It's all subjective. Klape kuchubik.
Can't happen.
No,
But it's a right way how to treat the.
If you go into
what's
that,
happening.
then the Mishna Le'ir is also should be
Let's
there.
let's read let's read the Bavli.
Can never prove that it didn't happen.
Let's read the Bavli. Let's read the Bavli, and we'll hopefully gain some clarity.
doesn't happen.
They mean Messias.
Okay.
Can't understand doesn't mean kibbutz, we need to mention them.
הייתה אשתו מעוברת. You see the Bavli Brachot about this same section. הייתה אשתו מעוברת ואמר יהי רצון שתלד, הרי זו תפילת שווא. Now the Gemara asks, ולא מענה רחמה? תפילה is not helpful, is not effective. And the question is, after all, he's asking for the future. He wouldn't ask, ולא מענה רחמה, concerning יהי רצון שזה לא יהיו אלא בני ביתי. Right? He's asking about מעוברת. מטיב רבי יוסף, now he brings זכר ילדה בת ותקרא את שמה דינה מאי ואחר, אמר רב לאחר שדנה לאה דין בעצמה ואמרה 12 שבטים עתידים לצאת מיעקב, 6 יצאו ממני ו4 מן השפחות הרי 10, אם זה זכר לא תאח אותי רחל כאחת השפחות מיד נהפכה לבת, שנאמר ותקרא את שמה דינה. Here's a slightly different version of this midrash, because it's not Rachel that is praying, it's Leah, out of her generosity. So the question is, we have even a precedent that is effective.
הגמרא הייתה להביא את הברייסה בשביל לשאול את השאלה. אם זה סתם שאלה בסבור, אולי צריכים את הברייסה.
נכון.
הגמרא הייתה לשאול, הרי זו תפילה שוב ולא מענה רחמה. אז הגמרא מבינה שזה לבד, הייתי יכול לפתור את זה.
כן,
אבל יש לי
זה
ברייסה
מחזק את
שכתוב.
השאלה, זה מחזק את השאלה.
רק מחזק, אולי אין שאלה
שזה
בכלל בלי
נותן-
הברייסה.
לא בטוח, יכול להיות, אבל לכאורה זה מחזק אתה אומר, הנה, יש לנו תקדים שזה עובד.
הם לא מביאים את הכתוב, הנה ככהן מביא עד היוצא.
עונה הגמרא, אין מזכירים מעשה ניסים. Okay?
So that's the difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi.
So that's a big difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. It says, no, you don't pray for Nes. Meaning, for example, I'll give you an example. If you're stuck in the road in the desert and you have left very little gasoline in your tank, but you need very urgently to get to a hospital which is 100 kilometers far away, you don't pray for Nes Chanukah, that with this half a liter it will suffice you to get to Eilat if you're stuck in Beersheba.
Even if
pray-
even if you don't look on the tank.
You pray that maybe a driver will come by,
It's the gas.
that someone will show up.
Somehow you'll get there.
Someone will show up, another driver, etc. Meaning, you don't pray for things that have no probability of happening without your prayer,
So what does prayer contribute?
right? You don't pray.
The best way.
You don't pray for things that couldn't happen without you praying, right? I remember when my father passed away and Rabbi Yoshev came to the shiva, not for me, but my brother is a Talmid of him, and there was a halachic ambush. It wasn't Nichum Avelim, he came and he was ambushed by different people, different halachas. What do we do here? What do we do there? So at a certain moment I said, no, the Rov came for Nichum Avelim, let's talk about my father. But before that, the temptation was too big. Here's the authority. You have him there. So there were many people. Each one was asking what I do here, what I do there, and I felt he was
Intimidated.
he was not comfortable in the situation. It was awkward. He came
Take
Menachem
an
Aved.
advantage.
So, but anyhow, someone asked him about someone who's brain dead, whether they should daven. He said Tfilat Shabbat. And Rabbi Yashiv answered
Very chotech.
Chotech, and he did the whole thing very quickly. Someone asked him a question that he didn't have a precedent. It was kind of a moment of nes ksheleatzmo. So asked him, Kaddish Yatom, I enter in the middle of Kaddish, should I join, should I not join? I saw him saying, this is even a shaila that I could not find a precedent. And I said, if it's Ba'agala Uzman Karif, join the Agala. but Tale ala Agala. But it was a very interesting moment, right? As him as a posek. He said, this is Tfilat Shabbat. So, for example, if someone is dead, you don't ask Nechaya Meitim and begin to, I ask for refuah. Why not ask? After all, Elisha, I have precedents, etc., etc. And maskir ma'aseh nisim. Now, this is not because nes is an impossible thing. Chazal were believed in nisim. That will be less interesting if it is questioning nes. But it's not a thing to ask for. That's Tfilat Shabbat. Because you put Hashem, because it's a sign of unwillingness to accept the world, and you put Hashem to test, right? By the way, there is a very interesting halacha in Tainis in Yerushalmi, by the way.
Who says this reason?
I'm saying.
Maybe it's because Menachem is chiyotov, and I'm trying to ask who says this. It's a nice reason, but
No, I
Chazal say a different reason. No, I'm mispalan hanasim ki Menachem is chiyotov shel ben adam.
he
הוא מציב את עצמו במצב של סכנה כשהוא עושה את זה.
Yeah, that's possible. Another possibility is that it's presumptuous on his part to think that he deserves a change of
Lack of humbleness?
yeah, it's kind of presumptuousness on his part. There are different ways, right?
Letanasi, you're right.
Right?
Yeah, Letanasi, right.
It's interesting because the Yerushalmi says that in Ta'anit, in I think Perek Bet Halacha Gimel, if I recall, it says that in Ta'anit, even if you need, Wittgenstein has a point where he says, in his remarks on religion, actually, a very interesting moment where he says, religious communities don't ask for rain in the sun. Right?
Unless they have a Leonovi. Because it doesn't come.
And I remember when I studied it in a philosophy class, I said it's a Yerushalmi. Well, Wittgenstein didn't know about it, and the Yerushalmi says that when they describe Seder Ta'aniyot, etc., Igi Azman, etc., but after Shvuot, you don't ask for rain, and he says, "En maskirim ma'aseh nisim." Right. So, what? I think so. Yeah. No, and I just let's see. Let's look at Yerushalmi Ta'anit. I'm going to check in the machine.
And that's going to cause you disappointment.
כמו כל יום,
You're gonna lose
תחיית המתים, אף אחד לא משתלל על תחיית המתים. ואתם מברכים בחיי האמת, אף אחד לא מבקש.
נכון, כשהמת אומרים ברוך דיין האמת, לא אומרים אני רוצה שהוא יקום לתחייה.
אני חושב שהסיבה הוא שבן אדם הוא יפסיק להאמין. אם אתה אומר לו שיש כזה, לכן משהו שלא ישתלם, תתפלל על זה ואף פעם זה לא יצליח.
זה להפוך
Die Hauskens Menschen helfen sich schon nicht zu machen. Die will gar nicht so ein Problem. Machst du selber mal das gesagt. Selber mal das schon weg.
Right. Things in the shop.
Ich bin ein Mensch.
Nice combination of science mit der Ratz. Mit der human.
Die sucht so in einer
It's a combination. Am Ratz ist sicher gewesen. Sie die was Achres. Macht es auf gemein.
Dat is vreemd.
Ich weiß, das ist verständlich. Es ist also.
Nein,
es ist nicht so.
זה זי סיים.
ירושלמי יש רק, אם מסכים עם ניסים בשקולים. על לחם פונים שולחן.
לא, יש בפרק ג' בירושלמי. אוקיי, תמצאו את זה במכונות. As I say to my students. בפרק ג' ב', I think, משנה ב'.
I'll find it here.
הלכה ב'.
הלכה ב', yeah. So I want to say the following thing. Here we have a very powerful difference between the Bavli and Yerushalmi about what constitutes Tfilat Shad. Because what the Yerushalmi wants to say,
I'm matrin al מעשה ניסים.
אין מתרים על מעשה ניסים.
פרק ג' אחרי ב'.
It's interesting, right? הגיע, let's read it, right? It says the following. ירדו לצמחים, אבל לא לצמחת צמחת, מתרים על האילן בפרוס הפסח. לבורות שיחינו למערות בפרוץ העצרת. Right? For the water reservoir till שבועות. Now ask the Gemara, מעתה אפילו יותר מכן. Why not even further? יותר מכן, מעשה ניסים. ואין מתרים על מעשה ניסים. Okay?
Might be different between philosopher and philosopher. You can't even have that.
In Metrim, you're not allowed to do it. So I want to say the following. I want to say just the following. Here we encounter a very conceptual, it seems to me a very important distinction between the Yerushalmi and Bavli about what constitutes Tfilat Shav. Because for the Yerushalmi, the main marker of Tfilat Shav is on the axis of time, future, past. If you want reverse causality vis-a-vis time, that's Shav. As long as it's future oriented, it's not Shav.
Even though ask on Leida, after Leida,
yeah, that's, we have
already been
kasha,
determined.
But
okay.
It's interesting. As long we can add in a reservation that if it's not known to you.
Okay.
But the Bavli, Tfilat Shav is not constituted by the axis of time. Time is just one case of it. But the axis of what could have happened without your prayer and what couldn't happen but for your prayer. And whether it's Nes or not, right? Or in Ramban's terminology, whether it's Nes Galui or Nes Nistam. And I mean religiously, it's a completely different attitude of where do you draw the line between acceptance and challenge, right? Where do you draw the line religiously? So what I did in this shiur is, do
you see more extreme?
What?
Which way do you see more extreme?
Well,
different ways.
I mean, you don't. It's not that you see the extreme in the sense. Both are extreme in different senses. Okay. Because the Bavli is extreme in the sense of acceptance. A person has to accept the world as it is. Tfilah is a certain flexibility among what's possible, what could have happened without your tefillah. We have seen people, even very ill, get better, and then you ask for it. But we haven't seen a dead being resurrected, and we haven't seen someone, if I follow Rav Eliashiv, who's brain dead, coming back to life. We have seen maybe someone in a coma actually awakening. That's true, and then you ask for it. But it sets a limit for, and we gave different reasons why the limit is that I would say favors the attitude of Kabbalah, of Hoda'ah. אני מודה. Now the Yerushalmi is pushing in a more radical way in the power of tefillah, the transformative power of tefillah.
It's how effective tefillah is.
Exactly.
The Bavli didn't believe that it's possible to change certain circumstances with tefillah.
No.
Unlike Brest, unlike Reb Nachman.
No, I'm not saying that's
but the
interesting.
doesn't disagree with the Bavli.
No, 100% disagree.
Because I would say
the Bavli holds you cannot change.
It doesn't say the Shami holds it can change.
I'm saying no. It's different.
Say.
No, it's interesting. We have an interesting thing. It's not like the Bavli didn't think that miracles can happen and caused by tefillah. After all, the Bavli has the tradition of Leah's prayer.
Right.
Didn't say, well, that didn't happen. But it cannot be a precedent for everybody's prayer.
Every regular person.
Right? But the Sham is also maskir.
It doesn't, and maskirin in the sense that it doesn't create a normative precedent.
The Shami also holds like that.
The Hanhugenissis,
so that's a Yerushalmi in Ta'anit.
The Hanhugenissis cannot be included.
Yeah.
This is Shami if it's choleh.
Yeah.
And holds that you can ask for Nisim as long as you don't ask for the past.
Backward, yeah.
Future Nisim.
Now, clearly,
but still
I would say,
again, that if something that you can.
I would say the following.
Something is not nikar.
I would say the following, from a perspective of religious policy. You don't want to break the heart or create of believers by saying, well, when you don't have gasoline, just ask for Nes Chanukah. Actually, it happened, right? And then it's not going to happen.
Because the Rambam halt nicht.
Well, it's not.
No, the Rambam in Chanukah.
Now I would say. Now I want to say the following. What's deep about it? What's deep about Chazal here is that Chazal didn't have any doubt in the effectiveness and metaphysical possibility of Nes. Not only that, in the Bavli itself, as you said, there is a raya from Leah. They know that those things happen, but they cannot constitute a normative precedent.
Right.
They've used the Medrash as Medrash, that it's a story, it's a myth. The Yerushalmi accepted it as actual. The Bavli didn't accept. The Bavli accepted this is a story, and we can't. Based upon this story, we can't change our theology.
Why do you say that?
I see it.
Why do you say it's a myth? I don't understand. They believe that it's true, but it's not a precedent that should set.
It doesn't mean in a physical way.
We have different readings. Good. It's fine. I mean, that's good. That's a good sign. That's a good sign for.
It's not a good sign to say mythical things. It's not. It's not. Why should you say the Bavli? Say mythical things.
It's fine.
No, it's fine to say it, right? You could say that. I mean, it's acceptable.
It's fine to say that there is a.
That's what it means. I am maskirim masanism means that.
By the way, there is the term en maskirim masanism. I think en maskirim masanism appears. If I recall, it appears in the Tosefta Yevamot, right? In the Tosefta Yevamot, about the case where someone entered when someone was drowning. But there was a cave that kind of supplied oxygen. Rabbi Meir's, right? Rabbi Meir's opinion.
If you can be matter his woman,
right. Yeah, but there is a case where someone went in. No, it's in the Tosefta. In any event, okay,
what he's saying, I think it's a good idea. Pshat. They're saying that I'm Skirim Masanism is not about tefillah. You could ask for a nes, but you bring a raya from this story. Don't bring me this story because this is like some kind of interesting story that we don't want to base anything on it.
Okay, we have different ways of understanding what is it that you don't want to base on it. One is that you have doubt whether nisim happen, and therefore, you have stories about nisim, right? As I remember. My father was a Chassid. He was a Chassid. He was telling me that once he knew of two. Maybe you know the story much better than I. You're more versed. So two Chassidim were debating which Admor is greater, and he says, "My Admor. I'll tell you a nes that my Admor did. He went to collect tzedakah, and he came to a house with his shames, and he asked for tzedakah, and the Admor knocked on the door, and the Gvir came and slammed the door at him. He says, I don't want to give. So the Rebbe was very furious. Says, let this home fall on him. And the Shames said, but there are children there. And the Rebbe said, so it shouldn't fall, and it didn't fall. So one thing you can say, we don't base on it because those things don't happen. But I think a more interesting view, and I think more authentic to what Chazal think, is that those things do happen.
They didn't necessarily...
הלשון ספר חסידים. אל יתפלל אדם תפילה שאי אפשר לעשות בקשתו, אף על פי שיכולת ביד הקדוש ברוך הוא. אין לבקש דבר שאין נעשה כפי הטבע, ואסור להתפלל לקדוש ברוך הוא שיעשה נס בשינוי העולם.
מי אומר את זה?
ספר חסידים.
Now I would say that's beautiful. It's
like he says, Father did that, God could do it, but
so it become more interesting, or I think more authentic to Chazal's thinking, which is yes, it occurs, but en maskirim means it cannot serve as a precedent. By the way, that's the use of en maskirim in the original moment in Yevomes. where you say, no, that's not a precedent for
to prove
halacha.
that it's still
The
allowed.
exception is not a
The Gamla
precedent.
Parcha, that he came.
So what I did today in terms of learning is to to see how just to and for us and a way of learning iyun in Chazal where an editorial discomfort opens up a very deep religious question of the relationship between complaint and acceptance, right? Which that's the Perek is trying to set up after that's what the Perek was aiming to set after the after introducing the rule of Modeh al Hara.
If you want.
What?
If you want, that's it.
And then the other feature is the way the Talmudim work on the problem of the concept of Tfilat Shav and how important it is in terms of their religious thought. And as I said, methodologically, to become sensitive to those moments, the most potent moments, by the way, in any legal text, not only in halacha, is where interpretive gaps emerge.
Constitution.
And that's a moment in which...
Isn't every interpretation a gap?
Not all the time. Sometimes interpretation is opting between two plausible
The founding fathers.
readings, you have two...
But it's still deciding one way. So
Yeah,
it's a gap.
but it's not a gap in the sense that you prefer a semantically less plausible reading.
The authors could have had
For a
both.
reason. You can say b'shokvecha.
Outlaw, it's the outlaw.
You can ask yourself whether b'shokvecha means while going to sleep or while you're sleeping.
In the time of sleeping.
In the time of sleeping. You would say, we come back now to the first Mishna. Is the time of Krishma ends at night, the Ashmura Rishona, the first 3 hours, etc., when people are going to sleep, or Kol Halayla, Adalot HaShachar, while they're sleeping. Now, these are two plausible readings of the verse B'shokvecha, or the term B'shokvecha. But still, you have to make an interpretive choice, because most texts are, in that respect, open. I mean, they're not completely fixed. But you have cases where what I call interpretive gap, where the interpreter will opt consciously for what seems to be semantically a very a least plausible reading of the text. Now you have to ask yourself, okay, what drove him? What's the mechanism that drives it? Now, many times, such a moment changes the whole way halacha will be reconfigured, because those interpretive moments becomes authoritative vis-a-vis next generations, etc., etc. So I'm gonna come up with a few large definitions. One thing that interests me is what is a sugya, okay? How do we define the discourse called a sugya? Right. We learn. I remember after learning many years, I asked myself, can I give an account of what is it? What is this about? All right. And so I will, as we learn, I will come up with a few what I call foundational features of sugya. But here we are at one very important feature. A sugya is a chain of interpretation.
Why do you want to explain the term sugya? Where is the mention?
Sugya-
Where is mentioned the term sugya that you want to explain that term?
Well, a sugya is an enclosed, definite sense, a set of
By the
give and
way,
take.
where is mentioned such a
No,
thing?
no, I'm not saying that
Trying
it's
to explain
mentioned.
something. I'm asking where does it mention that you want to
No,
explain that?
I don't have to have the name. I see a
You mean this
unit.
body of this
I
kind
see a
of
unit, right?
unit.
What is the
unit.
boundaries?
Yechida. What
Yeah.
is yechida? What is it?
No, you see a yechida in Shah. By the way, you see a definite unit where there is a dealing with a certain subject for some
Right.
time, and then we
That's
move
I'm
to.
asking. What do you need to describe more than that?
I'm done. Now I have to ask myself. No, well, that's just setting the data. So, well, there is a unit of discourse, right, that has a beginning and an end, and then
You need to
another.
discard on a noseh.
On a
Noseh
noseh.
Mesuyam.
Now I want to understand how it operates. Okay, what's the logic of this unit? Okay, now I would say think fractally. By fractal,
Must mean how to say the Hebrew.
okay, I would say
Fractally, to break it up.
no.
Ah.
By fractal, I mean that and there is no term
Ah.
for fractally.
Fractal.
By that I mean, it comes from physics, right, or math. You would say that you take structures where
You
you
think there
say
is a pattern?
no. That the small unit is the pattern of the whole unit.
Okay.
Okay. Now the idea is that if you learn one sugya, good, you're gonna get the features of all the
That's what I'm
sugyas.
saying. You think there's a pattern?
But
It's not a kafan with a lot of voices, but it is a lot of voices. But the orech has a kav mesuyam.
right, we're
That's what he's
gonna
saying.
yeah. So I would say one feature of it, just one feature, just by way of conceptualizing it, will be that a sugya is a chain, as an interpretive cross-generational chain, right? Where dramatic moments in that chain is where there is an interpretive gap.
But it's not exactly because the Gemara a lot of times mentions the one that was the last before the one that was before. It's
No, I'm
like-
not saying that it's
I'm not
chronologically
saying
ordered.
chronologically,
No,
yeah.
I'm just saying that's a phenomenon. So here you see there is a very short sugya in the Yerushalmi devoted to Tfilat Shav. Right? Yerushalmi has some very developed sugyot other places, just very short. And it starts with a statement, right? ביושבת על המשבר היא מתניתה. This is a kind of a scandalous interpretive statement. So, no, right? Someone wanted to push the Mishnah in a certain direction, right? Which then leads us to look into it as learners, right? And trying to uncover something deep that is going on. Okay, so, and also an opportunity to reflect on really a feature, a very basic feature of tefillah, which is a complex relationship between demanding and thankful, and how you organize that complex relationship religiously as a question that the Sugiyot deals with, coming to a very, I think, substantive difference here between the Babli and the Yerushalmi.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shemot.
Amazing stuff.
Okay.
תודה רבה.
You should tell the show עכשיו.
Yeah.
I have
מוטי, אין לך כבר
a
שאלה.
substantial
יש לי המון מה לומר, אני מפחד.
מה שאתה רוצה להגיד?
אני רוצה לשאול,
תן
להגיד.
שיר בפני עצמו.
The entire Mishnah has this way of bringing in the halacha that they, as you call, like we call it the mapayche from Chazal, but they say like new halachas they invented, and they bring it in as if it exists already from ancient times. Hamkana es ishta, kini, stira, all these things are like the reversing of the psikim. It's not pushub shat, but when they start the Mishnah, they start hamkana. All these things, it's as if this fact exists. And it's not any different here, but tefillah, if to question if it existed or not, I mean, that's their side of doing it. They bring it in as if it exists.
So you're saying they
And
are
another
changing the
comment
past.
We have a
The
contradiction.
first question of the Gemara.
We have a contradiction. We have a contradiction. We have the Mishnah, and then we have the Medrash of liar, Ruchel and liar. Those are stand at tension with each other. I'm talking about here. The Yerushalmi is following the tradition of the Medrash, and the Bavli is following the tradition of the Mishnah. That's the difference here.
So back to what we're talking about. Clearly, 100% that whoever made the Mishnah is not playing with people. Like nobody's praying. I'm going to establish praying, and I'm going to say it as if people are praying. Maybe they prayed for 10 years. Maybe they prayed for 100 years. Maybe they prayed for 200 years. But they're praying before the Mishnah comes in, right? Nobody's being like, I'm not going to tell you that you have to jump, and I'm going to come in and say, when does Rav Moshe jump? The Moshe has to first jump, or the Moshe has to first give a shit be here, and then I can say, when is the Moshe going to arrive? Otherwise, I'm making fun of the people. So to say that, it didn't exist before, what is Rabbi doing? Like, this is the way they're doing for everything that they learned, but clearly it went on for a little short time before.
Right. Yeah, so in every realm of halacha that we learn, it's very complicated to figure out what was the prior practice. Right?
Another thing is speculations also.
Of course.
Because we don't have the literature, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have.
Could mean the
almost don't have.
Then you have.
See if it's not literature.
Then you have
know what's going on.
Second Temple traditions, etc., etc. But still, you don't know what was going on in the Chazal tradition.
Right.
But in case of Tefillah, okay, let's leave aside Kriyat Shema. We know that Tfilat Keva, right? Tfilat Keva, right? The fixed prayers are all takanot of Chachamim post Churban.
But the Rebbe who writes it is 50 years after.
Yes,
at least.
it's the same.
Same era, but when are we making Kuf Aleph Kislev? We're really making it, you know?
It was tefillah even in Beis Hamikdash. I'm not like
I said
Tefillat Keva. You
I said
say.
Tefillat
The
Keva.
setup of the way we do it.
I said
Tefillah
Tefillat
Keva.
So now,
Gemara even has the story of
okay,
The way we do it, כי יש דיין אבותיקים.
yes, that there is a chiyuv of zman, the chiyuv in zman of a certain
אבות תקנו קראת הזמן, אז מה מוסיף המשנה?